Many of the war pigs in Europe have been issuing chilling warnings. You must accept that your sons will have to die to defend their NATO allies. They cited the need to defend Finland, the Baltics, and possibly Poland against Russian aggression. Of course, we need to do no such thing. Russia is a power in retreat. Like many decaying empires, they will bluster, they will boast, and they will lash out if they feel threatened. The latter explains the Ukraine war. I won't go into details here, but if you don't know who Viktor Yanukovych and Victoria Nuland are and the role they played in Ukraine, put away your Ukraine flag and watch less television. That's not to say we couldn't get into trouble if we play our hand badly. We decided to get involved into the disaster of World War I following the assassination of Franz Ferdinand in June 1914 in Bosnia. Less than 2 months later, we were at war with Germany. That conflict cost us £3.4 billion at the time, and before the outbreak of World War I, we were operating on the gold standard, so that money was real and not printed. That's about 250 billion today. We lost 750,000 men killed and another 1.6 million wounded to a greater or lesser extent. Some of the injuries could be recovered from, others not. So getting involved in someone else's fight in Eastern Europe was a bit stupid. In 1938, we were determined to repeat the folly. We seemed to think it was terribly important that the Sudetenland Germans be governed by the made-up state of Czechoslovakia. Chamberlain went to Munich and concluded a pact with the Charlie Chaplin impersonator. Sorry, YouTube doesn't like certain words. Just 6 months later, the Germans violated the agreement, prompting Neville Chamberlain to extend the ludicrous Polish guarantee. That was a bluff. We never intended doing a damn thing about it, but no one in Whitehall had the wherewithal to imagine what would happen if our bluff was called. The Germans, for their part, correctly realised it was a bluff and didn't believe for a moment that Europe would again be plunged into war over a stupid Danzig railway line. But the war pigs had their casus belli and war was again declared. Estimates vary, but the total value of money given to Winston Churchill before World War II by various funders was somewhere between £8 and £9 million in today's terms. The funders had a very good reason to dislike 1930s German politics, but it doesn't alter the fact that our Prime Minister in 1940 was bought and paid for. It was their fight, not ours. Without Churchill, Lord Halifax would probably have exited the war. Of course, this is in no way a defence of mid-20th century German politics, but the reality is the Germans and the Russians were always going to fight. Since the fall of the Soviet Union, Stavka documents have come to light showing they were planning an incursion into Germany had the Germans not struck first. So we took sides in a fight between a monstrously evil German gangster and a monstrously evil Russian gangster who would prove to be the greater threat. By the end of World War II, we'd borrowed 250% of our GDP, smashed our position in the world, lost the empire, and reduced ourselves to a client state of the Americans. We were so poor after our victory in 1945 that food rationing continued until 1954. So it's against this backdrop of a stupid and ruinous war in 1914 to 1918 and another stupid and ruinous war between 1939 and 1945, we should consider whether it's really sensible to send our sons and daughters to be eviscerated in the trenches of the Ukraine. Now it's true that the bipolar world that existed in the Cold War is long gone. We now live in a multipolar world and the parallels to the summer of 1914 are not very hard to see, but we must absolutely avoid getting entwined in stupid conflicts. Now our beloved Prime Minister Mr Starmer has unnecessarily alienated President Trump, but Starmer won't be in office much longer and Trump's gone in 2028. But we do need to consider what to do if the American withdrawal from NATO picks up pace and they actually leave. We need to consider very carefully whether we should be part of a European defensive alliance or an Anglosphere arrangement. And then there's the small matter of the recent immigrants to the UK. Many of us have been saying that just because they have a passport, it doesn't mean they're British. The truth of that claim was shown in stark relief from a series of Vox Pop interviews the television did recently where immigrants were asked if they would fight for Britain. All of a sudden these paper Brits were in fact Pakistanis or Africans or other Europeans, but they weren't British. Also, the ladies who'd spent the last 30 years demanding equality and explaining why women are in fact men and there's no way to tell the difference anyway, suddenly decided the kitchen was preferable to a trench full of putrefying corpses. So when you hear these blood-soaked ghouls demanding war, 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 let's finally learn our lesson. Let's defend these shores, certainly, but let's not get involved in stupid Balkan or East European disputes. Perhaps the greatest European statesman of the late 19th century, Otto von Bismarck, famously said, "The whole of the Balkans is not worth the healthy bones of a single Pomeranian grenadier." He was right. Apart from the two world wars, we had a pointless adventure in Iraq between 2003 and 2011. We replaced Saddam Hussein with a series of regional lunatics. The country is still the basket case it ever was. This cost around 10 billion in pure cash terms. 179 men lost their lives, with another 3,500 suffering various injuries. What did that achieve? Starting in 2001, we deployed in Afghanistan for 13 years. This time we managed to replace the Taliban with the Taliban. In today's terms, that cost us about 30 billion. 237 brave men died pointless deaths, and a further 2,000 were injured. Setting aside the human cost in death, destruction, and shattered lives of those who survive, war drives us into poverty. Swiss GDP per capita is more than twice that of the United Kingdom. Switzerland managed to avoid European wars in the 20th century. Ireland similarly remained neutral. So it looks like if you avoid war and have relatively low taxes, your sons get to live, you get to enjoy your grandchildren, and you get rich. So the next time you hear Kaja Kallas, Ursula von der Leyen, Mette Frederiksen, or any of these Euro harpies demanding your children die for them at your expense, remember this: there's nothing in it for you. Your children will be killed and mutilated, your money will be looted while they get rich and their children are in complete safety. Don't be fooled again. If you're watching this, you are the resistance.